I like when a new generation of a car changes radically from the model it replaces, especially when the changes are for the better. However, changes are always risky. What will current owners say? When time comes to upgrade, will they like the new design of a model they loved so much? Toyota decided to take a gamble, and the 5th generation of the RAV4 crossover is completely different from the model it replaces. And I'm not talking only about the looks.
But I'll start with the looks, because it's hard to ignore that the new RAV4 looks more like Toyota's SUVs, which we don't get in Europe, the Highlander and the 4Runner. The boxy shape also brings Jeep Cherokee to mind, which, by the way, is just a few millimeters longer than the RAV4. But don't fall for the optical illusion. The new RAV4 may look like it is bigger than the model it replaces, but in fact it's 5 millimeters shorter, 10 millimeters wider, and it has 30 millimeter longer wheelbase. Toyota emphasizes the 5th gen RAV4 is made on the Toyota new global architecture. The new platform means, among others, new possibilities as far as powertrain packaging is concerned. Why is this significant? The 4th gen RAV4 got a hybrid version after the facelift, and that cut the boot volume by almost 10%. This car has 580 liters boot capacity regardless of whether it is front or all-wheel drive, or whether it has a hybrid or conventional powertrain. The batteries are now located under the rear seats, like in other Toyota models designed from ground up with alternative powertrains in mind.
Okay, so you can open and close the boot by swinging your foot under the bumper. There is a button on the lid, there is a button on the remote control, obviously, so you can lock it. No, you can't lock it. You can close it, but not lock it. So this button will not actually lock the car. It'll just close the tailgate, which takes ages and ages and ages. So I should have prepared something to talk about while this thing is closing, because there we go, now it's closed. So now I have to lock it with the key. And off I go. And let's assume I'm coming back and I know this thing is going to open for half an hour. So I take out my key, I press the button. Really? Really? So I have to unlock the car, and then I can press the button and see you in the next take, because this is going to take a while. 580 liters is 79 more than the previous hybrid, or 33 more than the previous petrol or diesel models. Gone is the hanging net, which was here somewhere in the middle. It was like a hammock, but the double floor can be flipped, so you can either have this soft side or this easy to wash plastic side to carry some dirty boots and stuff like that. You can also drop the floor, or you can fit the boot cover underneath it. Fold the rear seats and you get a flat loading area. Before I show you the back seat, a word of warning: do not order the side steps, and if the steps are an element of some styling pack, ask the dealer to remove them. Why? The RAV4 is not a high enough car to justify the steps. In order to use them, you have to stand on them with both feet and then get inside. Otherwise, you have to stretch your leg even further than usual to avoid touching the dirty steps. I mean, they collect all sorts of dirt, especially on a wet day. The doors may cover the sills, but they do not cover the step.
There is decent space in the back, like in the previous generation. Also here you can adjust the backrests. There are cup holders in the armrest. The floor is flat-ish, and under the air vents you get 2 USB ports, finally powerful enough to charge phones released this decade. Door bins fit small water bottles.
In the front, the dashboard and the instrument cluster are completely new. The rev counter in the petrol model or the power meter in the hybrid, as well as the fuel and temperature gauge, remain analog, while the digital display in the middle can either be a digital speedometer or pretend to be analogish. You can also get all sorts of fuel consumption, driving style and driver aids information.
On a sunny day, the display is in my opinion, too dark. The plastic transparent cover does not help. The infotainment system screen is also hard to read, but that doesn't matter, because the only thing it is good for is mounting your phone holder. European models don't get neither Apple CarPlay nor Android Auto. The US spec car at least gets Apple CarPlay. What else is wrong?
For example, the tiny buttons on the sides, why not use larger buttons and write on them instead of above them? The Bluetooth connection works 75% of the time, and the map orientation is always north on top. Theoretically, I can go into the map settings and change the orientation to whatever I want, like 3D for example. This is, I think, kind of there we go, 3D. But if I go back to the home screen where the widgets are, the map is back to north on top.
Fortunately, the sat-nav is a €900 option which you can skip. Also, the multimedia doesn't affect the rest of the car. For example, I like the rubber finish on the AC controls. The knobs are easy to operate even when you're wearing winter gloves. Seat heater buttons are now slightly higher. They are still small, but at least they are visible. And there is seat ventilation as well. At the bottom of the center console, there is an induction charger for your phone. Closer to the driver are drive mode buttons and a hole in the place where the all-wheel drive controller would be.
There are cup holders, decent storage, and a practical shelf in front of the passenger. The dashboard is pleasant to touch, and it's not just about touching, but that also means better sound absorptions. The door bins are okay size for a half a liter or maybe a liter bottle. And the door handles, okay, this part is a bit rough. But anyway, the door handles, they're also covered with rubber. And now let's get the show on the road, because apparently the hybrid powertrain in this car is absolutely revolutionary as the styling changes. We'll see. And we're on.
My first impressions behind the wheel of the new RAV4 is that it is a much bigger car than it actually is. But try to park it or turn around and you'll realize the car is virtually the same size as the previous generation. I'm not even using the 360-degree camera, possibly also because the picture is too small. I focus mostly on the wide-angle camera view in the rear and in the front. That said, in order to see the front camera image, you need to be very close to an obstacle or find a button somewhere around your left knee. It's not the most intuitive place for it, but at least it's larger than the one in Gen 4, which was next to the clock.
Besides a regular reversing camera, Toyota also offers a wide-angle view monitor here in the rearview mirror. There we go. You activate it like so, and yeah, if you load your car up to the roof, or there are some tall people sitting in the back and they obstruct your visibility, you can see the image from a camera. The camera is mounted at the top of the tailgate, but inside, so it's looking through glass, and this piece of glass is cleaned by the wiper if necessary. Now, I guess safety first, blah blah blah, and also at first this seems like a good idea, but after a while you kind of get an impression this is one of those solutions to a problem that nobody asked for.
The mirror darkens automatically, so the switch underneath is to start the camera. There are also a few buttons to adjust the angle, brightness, contrast, etc. The picture is wider than that from a regular mirror, and obviously there are no C or D pillars and no back seats with passengers on it. However, the problem, at least for me, is eye accommodation. It's getting better with time, but the screen doesn't show the depth I would expect from a rearview mirror. It's a different thing with the rearview camera, where everything is close and there are lines to help you maneuver. Screens replacing mirrors will be a thing in the next few years, but I wouldn't bet on them staying for long.
Okay, enough about the mirror, let's talk handling. which Toyota promises is supposed to be different, better, more precise, more refined versus the previous generation, Toyota talks extensively about lower center of gravity, greater stiffness thanks to the new TNGA platform. I don't recall the 4th generation RAV4 to be that bad to now be talking about a night and day difference. That said, 5th generation RAV4 is good to drive, but more like an SUV than a crossover, I suppose. The suspension evens out bumps pretty well, and the only disturbing sound is the insufficiently screwed to the tailgate, insufficiently screwed license plate. It just bangs around on bumps.
The brakes are great. However, when you want to take off fast from the lights, you feel all-wheel drive could help. Front-wheel drive RAV4 is for the more mature driver. Should you want to pretend there is no CVT, Toyota added shift paddles next to the steering wheel, and unlike in PSA cars where everything is cluttered and too close to the stocks, here the plus-minus signs are closer to the center of the wheel, while parts of the paddles closer to the outside section are smaller, and they don't obstruct the stocks.
While on the move, vigorous acceleration is less unpleasant to the ear, believe it or not, than in the previous generation. You still know it's a CVT, but perhaps there's better soundproofing, or maybe the electric motor is more powerful, or both.
Because Toyota refined not just the exterior and interior, but also the powertrain, the 2.5-liter petrol engine working with an electric motor produces 222 horsepower in all-wheel drive version and 218 horsepower in front-wheel drive version. Sounds like Lexus GS300H, but it's a completely new engine with higher compression, improved efficiency, better heat management, etc.
How does that translate into fuel economy? It's better, much better than the previous generation. Gen 4 RAV4 consumed over 7 liters per 100 kilometers around the city and 10-11 on the motorway, driving around 140 kilometers per hour. I know that's irrelevant for most of you, but in Poland we have relatively high speed limits on the motorway. The new RAV4 uses around 8 liters at motorway speed, but then driving on country roads and in the city, I got it down to 5.4 liters per 100 kilometers, which is about 43 US or 51 Imperial MPG, something like that. It's close enough to what Toyota claims.
Here, a few words about what Toyota's hybrid system actually is, because I know there is some confusion about how it works, whether it needs to be plugged in, etc.
Toyota's hybrid synergy drive does not require any input from the driver. It works best when you plan ahead, when you let it coast and that sort of thing, but that's like with any other car when you want to get your fuel consumption down. What this car does is it recuperates kinetic energy, and that kinetic energy recuperated is then translated into electricity, transformed into electricity, and stored in the batteries under the couch, under the rear bench. This is what's happening more or less. So the electricity from the battery can power the electric motor, which powers the front wheels, or if I let go of the accelerator and start coasting, energy is now recuperated, or if I step on the accelerator, I get a boost from the electric motor, I get engine powering the wheels, and also excess power from the engine is then put back into the batteries as well, if such a need arises. So for example, if the battery is close to depleted, the petrol engine will kick in and it'll act as a generator, and it'll also power the front wheels. So it all happens in the background, you don't have to do anything, and obviously there is no plugging the car in.
Toyota RAV4 gets a lot of safety features and driver aids as standard, with just a few you may add as an option. Adaptive cruise control with active lane assist help to keep the car in its lane and at the right speed. Unfortunately, on the motorway, when the radar detects a car in front, there is not much time to turn on the indicator and change lane before the car starts braking. But I guess it's designed with safety in mind rather than dynamic driving. Collision mitigating system now also detects pedestrians in low light situations and cyclists in daylight. I'm sorry, but I could not find a cyclist ready to act as my test dummy. Prices of the new Toyota RAV4 start at €30,000 for a 2-liter petrol front-wheel drive car, add €3,000 for the hybrid and €3,000 for all-wheel drive. This test car is a top-trim front-wheel drive hybrid for about €44,000, plus paint, plus side steps, plus a protective pack which features this anti-slip mat in the boot, plus sat-nav. All this adds up to around 46 grand. A hybrid Honda CR-V is slightly cheaper, it already has all-wheel drive and it is better to drive, even though I still can't stand the way it looks.
The new Toyota RAV4 does what it says on the box. It's economical, comfortable, decent to drive, and it's cool looking, and I'd buy it for the cyan splash paint. Not this one, obviously. And what do you think about the new Toyota RAV4? Have you owned any of the previous generations? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe to my channel, that's if you haven't. Share this video with your friends who may be looking for a new car, especially a crossover SUV kind of thing. And of course, thanks for watching and join me for more reviews every Friday. See you!